The time has come to share your thoughts, relive your moments, open up your hearts with one and only Rhythm and Remedy. Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to the first episode of the Rhythm and Remedy podcast with your hosts, Jugpreet Bajwa and Dr. Manpreet Bajwa. Brother, we did it, man.
Yeah.
We did it, man.
Yeah.
I can't believe it. And you know what's so crazy about this is that I think you and I started talking about this a few months ago, right?
I think when I came back from residency, we were like, we got the studio set up and we need to get a podcast going.
Yeah, exactly. So right off the top, I just really want to give a few thanks to Owen Christensen. He's going to be behind the mic, producing the whole podcast for us. So I really appreciate that. We'll definitely try and get Owen on as well. He's a bit camera shy, but it'll be great to have Owen on as well. So thanks Owen. And also to the fam for really setting up the studio, for really encouraging us to do this. So it's a great start. I can't wait to tell all of you guys the stories about how we grew up, sort of our ancestry as a family. But I think for us, I think one of the reasons we really wanted to start the podcast, and obviously you can expand on this too, Mans, is I think one of the reasons is that we wanted to show the world that we can all be brought together, and especially in such a divided world. So we'll be having people on with different perspectives, different viewpoints, and not necessarily points that we might agree with, we can always disagree with, or anything like that. But I think it's all about sharing perspectives. And I think this platform allows us to do that in a very safe space. So anyone that comes on, a lot of those people have connections to our lives and so forth.
Yeah, no, I think you touched on that magnificently, Juggy. And so I think really excited for the podcast, really excited for the guests that are going to be coming on to share their stories. And yeah, really, really excited that we actually got it off and doing our first day today.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we've been talking about this for months. The other thing I should let people know too, or we should let people know, is that Mans will definitely be on with me for a lot of the episodes that we do, but there will be quite a few episodes where, because of the work schedules and because of all those things, it'll probably just be the one of us on. And so while we're doing this together, we'll also have some episodes that are, separate, just with the scheduling and the time constraints and everything else. But there will always be a medical tip every week on the show. So yeah.
So, I mean, if you don't know, I'll get into my story in a bit, but yeah, I'll try to do a medical tip at least once or one tip a week, and to kind of share something that maybe isn't well understood in the medical community. And that's the way I kind of like to practice, is empowering patients, not taking their power away from their ability to heal themselves through, diet and lifestyle changes. So we'll definitely have some tips that everybody can kind of go by. Not to say to use this as, the only way to live your life, but it's definitely some tips and guides that I think will help everybody. So here, Juggy, let's start with you first. Yeah, let's kind of get into your childhood and your musical journey, and what kind of brought you here.
Yeah, well, honestly, I kind of wanted to ask you first because a lot of people would know, like when I was 6 months old, I had retinoblastoma eye cancer. Both of my eyes had to be removed, and that's how I became totally blind. And music was such a big part of our lives growing up, right? Like, I kind of wanted to go back to that because I don't think you and I have ever really talked about this, but one of the things that I really wanted to ask you as a brother is, when I was going through all the cancer stuff, how was that for you as somebody, obviously, I think you were about like 7 or 8 at the time, because you were born in India. Right. And then mom, dad, and you guys moved here in 91. Yeah. And I was born in 94. So obviously, like, parents had to work a few jobs, right? I remember dad used to have to work 48-hour shifts at times. Mom was working 2 or 3 jobs. And now you have, obviously, me going through all these cancer treatments and all of those things. So what was it that you observed from that for yourself?
To be honest, I think when I first found out about it, because dad and mom they tried to protect me and shield me and not really let me know what was going on initially. So I think I was 6 when I first found out about the diagnosis. And It was tough. I'm not going to lie. It was
Yeah.
definitely tough. It was hard to kind of navigate, you're 6, but then you're, like you said, mom and dad were working 2 jobs. And then now, like I had to, pull up my socks and learn how to change diapers. And sometimes it would just be me and you at home because, I was babysitting, mom and dad were working because they had to provide. And then I knew how hard it was for our parents. It definitely, especially on mom, it took a huge toll. So I think for me, I was able to, luckily and fortunately, I guess you can say, realize that, you were diagnosed with retinoblastoma, but why that happened. Our doctor was found to be negligent, and he kind of missed the early signs of the cancer that you had, the retinoblastoma. It was such a common sign. So for him to miss it like that, it blew my mind. I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand why a doctor was able to not listen to mom, not listen to somebody that was advocating for her son, especially when you're at the doctor's office and, all the kids are playing with toys and you don't even move out of your chair. So like how as a doctor were you not able to kind of be like, no, I'm going to give you a specialist appointment that you're asking for? And that kind of was the driving force of my motivation to know that I always wanted to be a doctor, right? Since that day.
Yeah.
You being born and everything that was going on and the fact that you had lost your eyes, that was kind of like, that shaped my entire childhood.
Wow. Well, first of all, I appreciate that. But, I think like I've always told people, like family, I think the environment that you grow up in is really what shapes you too, right? So I also felt that because you guys have been so supportive. And kind of looking back at that too, like, did you notice anything off before the whole sort of diagnosis happened when, obviously they took me to the hospital? And do you feel like, it was obviously a doctor's issue where they weren't up to date with their medical information at the time, and that's why they misdiagnosed, or that diagnosis wasn't really made properly?
I mean, things like that I definitely picked up on even before it happened at the doctor's office. Like you weren't really going towards what regular kids were going towards, right? Like even something shiny or bright, or when you were hearing noises, I could see that you weren't able to kind of track where it was coming from. Mm-hmm. So you were kind of, just kind of navigating on the floor, kind of crawling towards something that where the noise would be coming from the right, but you weren't able to kind of know that, right? Because you couldn't see. So I was able to pick up on those things. And obviously then after your diagnosis and your cancer treatment, watching, you're going through chemo at such a young age.
Yeah.
So watching how hard that was, I saw all your hair fall off, and like just seeing all the side effects of the chemo and how nauseated you were and like how difficult that was, even for mom and dad, obviously, to kind of take care of you, but then also kind of be there for me. And then, on the flip side, it's what motivated us. And I remember mom and dad going to India, because mom used to say this a lot, like she would be like, oh, what did I do wrong? Or what did I do in my past life that it's causing me to go through this punishment? And I think it was one Baba that we saw in India that kind of changed the entire family's perspective on everything. And they're like, don't be sad that God kind of gave you a child that, had cancer, is now blind. Be grateful for the fact that he thought that you guys were worthy enough to take care of such a child.
Yeah.
That he saw that the hearts that mom and dad have and they've kind of given to us as kids, we'd be able to provide that environment and help you pursue your goals. So feel worthy, feel respected by God, that he looked at you as a family that was more than capable of providing for a special soul like that, So I think that's when like the family started turning around a little bit and being a bit more positive and had a more confident in how we could kind of provide and be that support group for you.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I also feel the same way. Like I thank God for the family that I do have. And of course that includes you and Ashika, my sister, and mom and dad and everyone else, especially the extended family. But it's another point that you brought up, especially in our culture, when we look at something like this, whether it's at a later age. Like I've literally heard stories where parents leave their kids because they're blind. Mm-hmm. Or parents leave their kids because they're disabled. And I guess the question is, as a family member, as someone who's grown up with me, in a sense, but what would you tell sort of people like that who are like, oh, what did we do wrong? Or how do we sort of handle all of this? What would you kind of say to them?
Well, hopefully it doesn't happen to anybody else, because I think,
Yeah.
especially with eye cancer. But I mean, if you're in a similar situation, let's just say, right, it doesn't have to be that specific diagnosis. I would just say, yeah, just, think of yourself worthy enough to provide. And it's all about perspective in life, right? It's about how you look at things, and not what happens to you. It's how you deal with every situation. And I think that's what builds resilience, and that's what builds character, and that's what kind of keeps you motivated, and also connect to a higher power. I think you have to connect to, you don't have to be religious. I wouldn't, say that to anybody, but I would definitely say be spiritual, right? Like believe in a higher energy that permeates throughout society and through us as well. And just have an outlook where only focus on the things that you can control.
Yeah.
We couldn't control this. Mom guys couldn't control this. You couldn't control this. This was something that was beyond our control. But how we kind of banded together and changed and switched our perspective is what I would recommend to anybody going through something like that.
Yeah. And, as a medical professional yourself, like obviously you're in this sort of place now where you're working as a doctor and you're doing some great things. What would you say to a lot of the medical professionals that could find themselves in that situation, or students that are going to become medical professionals at some point? What would you say to them?
Honestly, it's pretty simple. Like I said, when I was 6 years old, the reason I wanted to become a doctor, when it was not just to treat, but to hear, to see, to advocate, especially for those whose voices often go unheard, right? Yeah. So I would just say our medical education is obviously there. That's why we're trained professionals. Yeah. And that's why we make the decisions to treat and to heal. But, if a family member is advocating for somebody that they spend 20 plus hours with in a day, sometimes more depending on if they have some sort of illness, but if they say something's off, or if they're really advocating saying something's wrong, then just take a step back and just give them that extra couple of minutes. Just hear them out, see what they're actually, what their perspective is about that patient, their family member's illness, because they can provide some really valuable information that we just can't get in our limited amount of time, encounter time that we get, right? So
yeah, no, it's so true. It's so true, and I think that goes for any field that you're in, right? Mm-hmm. Because you always have to be willing to learn and grow, right? Mm-hmm. Even for me, like that was what my childhood was, right? It was slowly learning and growing. Like when I first found out I was blind, I was like 5 years old. I had like no idea what it meant at that point. But then I realized also why kids were acting so differently around me, because I was holding this cane and I thought everyone was sort of like holding this cane. In fact, I remember like when I was in kindergarten, I was like, hey, like I was talking to a friend of mine. I was like, yo, where's your cane at? And so I didn't know. But yeah, it's crazy that you talk about misdiagnosis, because I remember back then there was a psychiatrist that came in, and you're usually assigned a psychiatrist if you're dealing with some sort of like disability or anything like that, like when you're blind, just so they can come and evaluate you. But he almost misevaluated me as well. In fact, he came in and like I used to be pretty temperamental back then, right? Like I used to have like, certain things that I would go through, like if it was like not being able to sleep at night and then waking up, or like sleeping during the day and waking up and feeling like, I was dealing with so many temper tantrums. But a lot of it, like especially when I was really, really young, like 5 or 6 years old, was I couldn't tell the difference between night and day.
Right.
So that was really hard. And so, but on the basis of the temper tantrums, he didn't really take that into context. And he was like, well, it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to comprehend much, and it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to do much. And so my vision teacher, Pat Gould, at the time, called him in, and she was like, well, I think that you've completely misread the situation, and you need to come in and you need to see him read a Braille book. And so he did. And once like I was reading the Braille book and she was asking me reading comprehension questions, like to a kindergarten grade 1, right?
Right.
And I was answering them just based on what I read. And I turned to him and I'm like, oh, hey, Dr. Freeman, that's you. And he goes, how the hell did you know I was sitting here, right? Like, I was like, well, because I knew by your smell, like, like you wear this like distinct cologne or whatever. So I knew. And he basically rewrote everything that he evaluated, and it just took off from there. So I think there's a lot of kids that kind of go through this, and I've seen some kids within the, the special needs or resource center programs that may have been misevaluated when they were young, because sometimes their potential kind of goes unnoticed, or it's being warehoused, or that potential ends up being warehoused, I should say. Whereas, a lot of students could be in regular school programs that may not be able to be in regular school curriculum, or may not have been able to be in regular school curriculum programs because of the way they were misdiagnosed and the way that, because of that, the way they grew up. And I think that can really shape or break that life for you, in the sense, if that makes any sense. And so it's one thing that I sort of learned through school as well, is when I was a child, like, I was very antisocial. I've talked about this before too, but I didn't really know how to sort of be around people. I think part of it was like being able to explore things, really getting to know my surroundings, but also I think on top of that, it was maybe this is just the way I am, and kids will never relate to me anyway, so maybe this is who I am. And obviously we'll have Mr. Aarons on at some point, but he was the one who really changed my state of mind when I was in high school. And it was crazy to see, like,
And I was going to say too, I think we were fortunate and lucky, especially for yourself, that you had a really good support team, from elementary and up, right? Like from all the support staff and the teachers. And I think they were all kind of banding together. Because I was surprised, man. You were riding your bike when you were like 4 or 5 and like going up and down. You were escorted home by the police a couple of times too, I remember. So like,
I was like, no, I remember like one time I ran after this ice cream truck. I used to be like into like ice cream, like when I was 4 or 5, right? I was like naked, and I was like this 5-year-old just running after an ice cream truck, and like I got lost, and then like the police came and picked me up at that point too, and then I would be riding my bike around, and one of my very favorite mentors is Daniel Kish, who's also blind, who was like, no, we can ride bikes. It's all about echolocation. So when a sound bounces off, like when you're riding a bike, you can actually even hear things bounce off.
And that's so wild, like how your senses like are so heightened, and how you guys use echolocation. And I remember going back to that Braille story that you brought up. Like I remember like one Harry Potter book in Braille was like what, 10 different books, or like
10 different volumes.
10, volumes, right?
Yeah.
And I remember you would just crush them, and I was like, wow, like I was so amazed, like when people can like you were devouring those books.
Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah, no, it was. I remember going to the movies with me and Ashi too, and back then. But no, I guess for me, like I appreciate you sharing that perspective of you growing up and how it was for you, because I think what was the biggest struggle for me as an older brother, was how to give you that independence, how to promote that independence. I think I was very protective, and just from my side of, no, I hope you don't get hurt, or I hope, like,
of course.
I think that's where Dad was kind of the the renegade in that sense, where like he would just let you like go, and like even at parties and stuff. I remember at the halls, like I'm like, where's Juggy? He's like, oh, he's out there exploring. Like he would go walk around and like map out the entire area. Go up and down the elevator, and then like you're very curious, inquisitive, and I think that kind of helped. And then even like in university, man, like you would take 2 buses, SkyTrain, C bus, and then another bus just to get to your class in the morning, and then the same route back. Like that was so inspiring, that you never put any limitations on yourself either. Like you were able to kind of break through those mental blocks or whatever it was by doing the reflection and the work and getting your music degree, and like double music degrees, one from India, and like everything that you've done. It's been so inspiring for us all.
No, bro, I appreciate that, man. And obviously for me, I think that was like, I always loved to travel. Like, right from the beginning, Mom would take me on the SkyTrain. And for those who don't know, like I used to be, I'll always be a transit nerd for the rest of my life. But back then, like
when you were talking GPS, like I'll call you sometimes. I'm like, I'm at this bus stop. When's the next bus going to come?
Yeah, well, that too. But like I'd like call TransLink so many times that they actually had to call my house, and they're like, is this guy okay? Like imagine this like 6 or 7-year-old just calling. And in fact, I think the record was like 365 calls in 4 days. Like
that you called them?
Yeah.
Like saying what? Just like asking about the different routes?
Yeah, asking about the different routes. And like, I didn't have a computer back then, right?
Sure.
So like, and like I would call up the SkyTrain CEO at like 9 or 10 and like start talking to him about like, oh, how we can improve the line, which is
awesome.
crazy how they actually listened to one of my suggestions too. And it was so funny because I think that's what really got me to traveling, is because I loved, you know, buses and trains so much, right? You know, that was my thing. And in my childhood, in fact, I was so into them that was the other part of how I didn't really get along with people. And I wouldn't say get along, but I definitely, there was a gap because it's known as stimming or stimulating. So I would make like Skytree noises and bus noises and and stuff like that.
Wait, so come back to that. That's interesting. Is that like a coping thing that happens, or is that just something to kind of, because you don't have obviously the visual stimulation, is that something to kind of help burn off that energy and then
exactly.
Yeah, explain that a bit more.
Yeah, no, I think you're on the right track.
Okay.
Basically with so you know how we're always distracted by what we see or like so like back then, like there was not a lot of games I could play. There was not a lot of things I could play that were accessible at that point. Except now I don't really care if it's accessible or not. Like I'll play NHL and I'll score my own net and I'll be like, hell yeah, you know, that was a great game.
Yeah.
You know, like it's kind of like how the Canucks season's gone to this point. But
but too soon.
You know, but you know, when you sort of look at it, for me, like it was a way to kind of distract myself, and because I love traveling, but I would do it in a school setting where I just make these like weird noises, like, you know, like the Skytree noises, to the point where actually people thought it was pretty accurate, and like people would actually come and hear me. Like it's like
it was pretty accurate,
you know, like back
you're
then,
good at doing impressions, so I mean, like, yeah.
So like, yeah, it was crazy, and obviously that took a long time for me to get out of, right? To kind of like, even when I move my head like this, like it's so subconscious, and a lot of it is because when you see you're so distracted by things, like for me it's more like body movement, right? So you know, when I'm thinking about something exciting, my head moves, or when I'm listening to a song that I really like that I'm vibing to, my head moves. And sometimes I don't even know that's a thing. Right. And so it wasn't really until like, again, high school was such a stepping stone for me, because I started to realize, okay, these things were socially okay, and these things, you know, aren't really perceived as socially the norm. Right. And so like, you know, that's when I started really getting out of the whole, you know, Skytrain bus noises and stuff like that, right?
Sure.
But it took me a while, you know, it took me a while. And I think it was a slow process, because I really had to, again, get out of my shell, really find myself as a person. And I think once I started making myself really approachable to people, to peers my age and stuff like that, I think that's when they started to realize, like, yeah, this guy's like, you know, normal. He's not defined by the loss of his sight or anything, but he's defined by, you know, he used to play like video games like us. Like, remember he used to play Mario Kart?
Yeah.
And like on Nintendo and stuff. Like,
right, yeah, and 64, yeah.
Yeah, we used to play Halo quite a bit, right?
That's
like,
right.
Yeah, on Xbox. And I wouldn't even know what the hell I was doing. But like, you know, at the same time, like I would just have fun, you know, and that was the main thing, is like, you got to make the most of your life. Right. And that's when I really start to realize in high school, it's like, you really got to start making the most of your life, because people can feel sorry for you, but should you feel sorry for yourself? And I didn't want to be in that situation anymore where I was feeling sorry for myself. I'm like, this is who I am. And as I've gotten older, I've really accepted that, and I'm happy with it.
No, that's powerful. And look at all the achievements that you've had so far, man. People could only dream about those. You know, being like the third or second runner up in Saregama, like the equivalent to, you know, American Idol. Like that's phenomenal. You beating out like, you know, hundreds of thousands of contestants, waiting out in the rain, you know, just to audition, and then getting onto the show, and then doing so well, and then being like such a prominent name in the Vancouver music industry. You know, like singing, like everybody loves your anthems at the Canucks games. You know, and we all miss you. I don't know why they're not bringing you back. Well, that's a story for another day, right? But I think you've kind of achieved so much already that this is another avenue for you too, even just doing the podcast and getting that story out there and people's stories out there, you know? So
no, of course. Yeah. And just to kind of bring it back a bit, like people would say, what? Like, you know, bike riding and stuff like that. But yeah, I used to ride bikes a lot. In fact, I've hurt myself quite a bit too, just riding them. Like sometimes I'll crash. But honestly, like I kind of learned how to sort of navigate that. I'm sure there's probably some neighbors pissed that I accidentally scratched their cars up a little bit, you know, like I'm sure there was a bit of that. But like, I remember like my favorite bike route was like riding down to the park, like by our house, and like going for a baseball game, and just like, you know, buying some stuff from the concession stand.
Right here at Gunderson?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's
And
awesome.
like getting some like freezies, and like, you know, like I was like 7, 8 years old. And then like one time the police came and they're like, oh, like there's these like neighbors worried about you because you're blind and riding a bike. And I'm like, really? Like, you're going to just take me home now? Like, it was so funny.
Well, I remember even like one of my favorite things was when we would go on the SkyTrain, I would you get your cane and just kind of, you know, if there was like a, you know, pretty girl that I wanted to say hi to, I would kind of just like take a cane and like hit her foot in the back, and, you know, she'd turn around and then she'd realize, oh, okay, like, you know, she didn't get mad, and it's kind of a nice way to break the ice. So
Yeah.
it had its perks too, you know. So
Yeah, man. I mean, I can't really comment on that. You know,
well, I mean,
like,
I'm married. I mean, you know, like I've told those stories to my wife.
yeah. That's funny. So like, kind of going back for you, like, because I feel like as a family, we've kind of been able to live out our childhood dreams in some way. Like, I've always wanted to be a musician since I was young. And I feel like you've always wanted to, like you said, like the medical side of things really shaped your life. But even for you to get to this point, it was a lot of struggle. It was a lot of like, you were living
It wasn't easy at all, you know? So like, like going back to, I knew what I wanted to be at 6 years old. I didn't know how I was going to get there. You know, we come from humble beginnings. So, you know, the biggest hurdle, I guess you could say, was going to be cost. You know, how are we going to afford med school? You know, I had really good grades throughout high school. Then just by chance, I mean, I always wanted to go abroad to study. And, you know, a lot of the people used to go to the UK or Ireland, but that was just really expensive. But then I found this opportunity in Europe and Poland. And it was kind of like a right after high school type of program, where it was a 6-year program. And that, you know, that on its own was such an adventure, you know, going to a brand new country, new culture, new people. There was still a lot of racism there. They didn't want, you know, other nationalities to be coming into their country. You know, it was so bad to a point where I remember there was one student, he was actually a Sikh turban student. He got beat up so bad that he quit. He's like, I'm not going to stay here, you know? So like,
and you had to deal with some things too, right?
I mean, I used to bartend on the weekends at like a local foreigner bar. My first couple of years I was there, and then there was some racism there too, and I got into a couple of altercations with so it wasn't easy. It was a tough road ahead. And then, you know, when you kind of go to international school, unless you go to like, you know, the Caribbean, there's like a top 3 really well-known schools that have affiliations with US hospitals and stuff like that. I mean, finishing medical school wasn't hard. It was being in a different country and different environment.
Yeah.
And then taking the exams wasn't hard, you know, because like that's what you do the entire time you're in med school. You learn how to take exams, you learn how to focus and study. It was getting the Canadian and American experiences that was the hardest part. So, you know, I graduated in 2013 from med school. I was 24, 25, didn't get into residency, almost gave up multiple times, you know, because I was like, this is something I really want to do. But then I just realized that's it. Like, that's just it. It's my dream. I have to make it happen somehow, you know, and I was able to, you know, have a career in between, because when you have student loans to pay off, you got to, you know, you can't just be doing volunteer work for the rest of your life. But that one year, I wasn't even going to apply. It was 2021. It was a big year. You know, I got engaged that year. You know, I found the love of my life that year. I got into residency that year, only because, you know, Dad was urging me, and one of my good friends from med school, you know, he was like, you have to apply. Like, you never know. I didn't even match in the first cycle. I had no interviews. And then me and him both there's a program called the SOAP program, where if you don't match the first round, you can kind of try in the second round. And we ended up getting a position. And then even that wasn't easy, because I didn't get into a regular program. I got into a transitional year program. So I had to work really hard for that program to keep me on in their internal medicine program. So like worked my butt off. They finally offered me a second year position in internal med, you know, which is a feat on its own. That's not easy to do either. And then I got, you know, was promoted to chief resident my final year. And then it was almost like, you know, the stars started to align all of a sudden, you know, for like the last like 8 years trying to get into residency, 8+ years, nothing was working out. But then once I got in, like everything was lining up. Then BC started changing their rules and regulations, where if you're internal medicine trained, you can come back and, you know, work under the USA certified license. So that kind of helped me come back home quicker than I ever thought I could, because I used to always think I'd have to stay in the States for a number of years, be away from family, and that wasn't easy to think about either. But then, the stars aligned, and I'm living my dream now of working in my community, working at Surrey, where mom works, Ashi works, Tajvir works. So it's just like...
Yeah, it's insane. Like, it's like literally Bajwa Memorial.
Yeah.
Like, it really is, man.
Well, Dad was joking. He's like, well, I just need to be there now as a patient. I'm like, no. Don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the thing is, like, I think it kind of teaches you in any career that you're in, and especially, the medical career, or even like in the entertainment industry, you've got to be really patient, because you don't know when that time is going to come for you, but you just got to keep trying, right? Like, the more you keep trying, I feel like the more success you'll have.
Yeah, and I think, and I hope some of the guests that we get to come on also can allude to that point where, if you have a dream, you just have to stick with it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm a prime example, and I would love to share my story for, and I try to help people that are also going to medical school abroad, just let them know that, hey, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Like, you just, if this is something that you really want to do, because there's so many people in this world that want to help others.
Yeah.
Like, you should be only going into medicine if that's your only thing that you want to do. You just want to help others.
It shouldn't be about the money or the finances.
There's other ways to make money, and quicker ways too. So, like, you don't have to spend 8 to 12 years in school just to
We're not advocating for selling drugs. I promise.
Right. But be cool, stay in school.
Yeah,
right?
Be cool, stay in school.
But like, you have to kind of fight for your dream. You just have to just never give up. Like, if you really want something, you can definitely make it happen. And I think you're a testament to that. I think I am. Dad is, like, our entire family is. So you just have to you just have to have faith.
Take it back. I mean, during those 8 years, what was it like for you? Because you're looking for those opportunities. There's so much competition. It's such a competitive field, and in a similar way, I'm dealing with that competitive field as well.
Well, I mean, look at it this way, right? Like, I was just finished high school. I think I was working at Coast Capital. They had their youth team, so I was, like, so proud to be this young junior banker guy.
Yeah.
So, like, after high school, I finished some science credits, but I didn't really know university level work at that time, right? So I'm only 18 at this time.
Yeah.
And I get in, apply to this school, and I get in. So this 19-year-old is starting this, University of Medical School program in Poland that, doesn't know the language yet and is trying to, like, figure out his own way in life. And then now he's starting medical school, So it was tough, man. It was really tough, like, learning how to juggle, like, you had, like, 10 quizzes a week, like 4 or 5 lectures a day, plus labs. So it was for 6 years straight, and you really had to learn how to self-motivate and be self-motivated, how to self-teach.
Discipline.
100%. How to cook, how to do laundry. I never knew how to do those things. And, like, I was still a young kid. Learn how to navigate being in a different culture, different, country.
Yeah.
But it was fun. On the flip side, sure, it was really difficult the first few months, but when you kind of got used to it and kind of got accustomed to it, like, we used to travel because it was so cheap.
Yeah.
Just in Europe, like, I think we went to Italy once. We stayed at the ambassador of Nigeria's house, like, because one of my friends was his nephews. So, like, we had so many cool, like, travel stories too. And also on the flip side too, there's people that never even finished med school. Like, they came in, their mom and dad they're both doctors. They came from a lot of money, had a car as soon as they got out there, a beautiful apartment, and that's all they did. They just liked having a good time and never really went to classes, So you kind of had that. Like, I think we started with 300 students, and by the time we graduated, it was only like 25 or 30.
Yeah. Wow. So there was quite a drop off in terms of...
And out of those 30, probably 10 or 15% got into residency. So, like, our odds were stacked against us from the get-go.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so I guess, like, because in our culture, we have this sort of thing, it's like doctor, lawyer, engineer, right?
It's like when you're born, it's like there's like this clipboard right next to you, right?
Yeah. It's like they have this, like, bulletin board. So, like, I think that's one thing for people to really understand, is that you should always do something that you enjoy doing, and don't do it because someone told you to do it, right? Because the medical field is a really stressful one. And of course, if that's what they want to do, that's what they should do. But I feel like there's a lot of people who I've met who feel like they've been forced into this. But in fact, they were awesome musicians, or they were awesome artists, or, you know, like whatever field they really actually wanted to get into, they never used to be able to. And that's what I always try to tell students now too, you know, the students I've been able to work with as well, which I'll get into in another episode, you know, in terms of the Wingspan program and stuff that I did last year, is higher education is very important. Of course, I would never deny that. In fact, I'm really glad that I was able to get higher education and I was able to live out, you know, a post-secondary life, kind of figure out my adulthood as well. But I think like the very most important thing is how you enjoy something that you're doing, because if you're constantly stressed out, if this is not something you want to do, then I feel like you're never really going to live up to your potential of what you've always wanted to do. And so I think that's really important for parents to understand, is it's not about being lucrative and making a bunch of, you know, wealth and money. It's about the wealth from within that should propel you to make the most out of what you have. And we all have a purpose on this earth, right? It's not all just to be doctor, lawyer, engineers. We all have a purpose, whether it's, you know, whether we're into gardening, whether we're into landscaping, whatever it is. Like if we're into landscaping, we're taking care of the earth, right? If we're into retail or anything like that, we're trying to help put, you know, food on the table for families, you know. So I think we always have this like glass half empty approach, or glass, you know, like, because this person is making that much money, we need to, you know, stick to that and we need to one up that. But it's not a competition. It's not a contest. Like life is not just this sort of thing where, you know, you just get up in the morning and I'm like, I need to like compete with this person today. I think the best source of competition is the internal competition that you carry with you.
Yeah. I mean, you just got really philosophical and deep on me there. But true words, man. You know, I think you just kind of have to find your calling in life, and you will. It'll come to you. Your purpose will come to you. Yeah. You know, if you really want to get philosophical, you know, like what is our purpose on life? Like what are we here to do? We're here to help others. You know, whether that's through music, whether, like you said, whether that's through whatever profession that you do. You know, help others, help advance humanity, help take care of each other. That's how we're made, and that's how we are, you know, our internal soul is enriched. It's by being there for people, you know, whether that's and especially for your own selves too, right? You have to be there for yourself to actually spread that light to others. But I think that's just something that will come to you one day, and things like meditation and things like taking a step back, because obviously if you want to get into the other side of things where mental health is such a taboo in the South Asian community still, right? Like, I think really acknowledging if you're struggling and reaching out, and, you know, if you're struggling because you haven't found your calling yet, then, you know, talk to somebody and help get some guidance, and, you know, just don't ever feel like you're behind in life. Because, you know, I was 33 when I got into residency. You know, that's pretty late relatively, right, compared to others, but I'm working, so now it doesn't really matter, you know, like it's never too late. You're never behind anybody. You're on your own journey, and you have to kind of just be okay with that, you know, and just enjoy the process. Life's too short, you know, you have to be in the present. You have to not worry about yesterday, not worry about tomorrow, just focus on what you can do today, right? And
exactly. I would say too that, you know, mental health is going to be definitely a talking point throughout our episodes for sure. Before we actually head out of here, I had a couple questions for you, because I'm curious, and a lot of people won't know this, but we actually used to have a pizza store. Yeah. Right? Yeah, it was called Millennium Pizza.
Yeah, it sure was.
And you and Dad worked your butts off. Like, I remember you guys used to have like the longest hours, and at that point you were in high school.
Yeah, I think I was in grade 9 or 10. No, grade 7, because we supplied pizzas for our grade 7 graduation party. I remember that. That was a lot of fun, you know. I was like the cool kid in class. And bringing the
just like coming in with all the pizzas, right?
And the drinks, But yeah, no, that was a really busy time. Dad would pick me up, because we used to open Monday to Friday. On the weekdays, we were open from 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. And on the weekends, it was 4 p.m. to 4 a.m. And me and him were there every single day. He would pick me up from school, and then I'd come home, sleep a couple hours, go to school. But it was a lot of fun, you know. Like, I remember you guys coming too. We used to eat a lot of pizza and like make our own like concoctions of like
made our own dough.
Yeah, made our own dough like from scratch, and did everything. So I mean, it was a fun time. When we, I guess, move on with our episodes, I think, you know, we'll kind of delve more deeper into Dad and just his journey in life too, because that's also inspirational.
Yeah.
But he was the one that would never compromise on ingredients and quality. No. He wouldn't serve anybody that he wouldn't serve to his own family, right?
Exactly.
We always used the finest ingredients, grade A, everything, and he would take his time and put a lot of heart into everything. So it's kind of hard. It's hard to have a business where you focus on quality, because back then there was King George Pizza. They would be given 4 pizzas for like $8 a pizza or something. And it's hard to compete and actually provide a good quality product. So
for sure. But how was that for you in terms of because you had homework, you were at the pizza store, it kept me in line, right? Yeah. Because then Dad had eyes on me every single day. Right? Yeah. He taught me business. He taught me how to complete my homework on time. He taught me, there's a lot of life lessons that I learned there. I think that was an invaluable time for me. Definitely difficult juggling everything, but at least, when I'm there with Dad, if I needed any help with my homework, he would help me, and he would ensure all my assignments were done. I was on the honor roll, man. Those years were my finest years, in middle school and high school. So yeah, we've had similar sort of in terms of the honor roll stuff.
Ashika too. We were all kind of.
Exactly. And, we'll definitely, talk about our life-defining moments for sure, because I feel like you and I have had some really, really life-defining moments, whether it's, decisions we've had to make or, the hard decisions or something that really changed our outlook. I'm really excited to kind of delve into that more, because I think it's imperative for people to, kind of hear our stories and all of that as well throughout that. So that'll be really exciting to talk about. But anyways, this is honestly a teaser for you guys. This is just the beginning, and just sort of touching on all these topics. We're going to get into a lot of depth on a lot of different things, but you can't spoon feed everything all at once, obviously. So just really want to say thank you to all of you for listening. Thank you to all of you who have been so supportive of us as a family, but of us as individuals. And for supporting us in our endeavor to do this podcast. And that includes, obviously the people behind the scenes, people like Owen. All of you guys have meant a lot to how we've begun this journey, and we can't wait to dive more into it.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you to everybody that Juggy mentioned, our families and our, supporters and loved ones. And hopefully one day we can start thanking sponsors too. Hey, Juggy?
Yeah, absolutely. Basanta Morta. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're like, we hear you, we see you, right?
Yeah. All right, guys. Take care.
The time has come to share your thoughts, relive your moments, open up your hearts
with one and only Rhythm and Remedy.